finally, unknown. I must be way deep in parts known. Again, a very good. Lori said, hi, I got a notification. Yay. Hi, Sandy. Hi, Joy. Hi, Vicky. Lori. I've been trying to log in and being frustrated for quite some time. I don't know how strong the signal's going to be. I don't know why things are acting. But anyway, I'm here and we got a lot to talk about. This is the anniversary of D-Day. And I'm going to do a little walk down memory lane how other administrations handled this day. And I think is one of the reasons why Mr. T told the Obamas that he would never forgive them for what they did to the military. I'll get that in a minute. But anyway, we all know that the dam was blown up in Ukraine. And, you know, that happened while we were live last night, or very close to it. So right away, it's all Putin's fault. You did it. And even though there were articles in the past that said blowing up that dam would have been like Russia shooting itself in the foot. And we'll go over a lot of that and past reports and combat activity that shows a fool would believe that Putin had something to do with that. But anyway, let me see who all's coming in now. Wolfpack, how are you doing? Hi, Tim. Hi, Diane. Digital Hawk. Jersey Joe. So anyway, I want to get a chance to give anybody a heads. I was alive. I was so frustrated. I'm here now on very little tiny bars as far as how much power I've got. And the last part of my thumbnail is rogue elements. What do I mean by that? I'll tell you what I mean by that. We keep getting these court decisions that block legislation to try to stem the horrors of surgical and chemical alterations to young people. I can only consider people that call themselves judges that do that to be a rogue element. And you've got these prosecutors and attorneys that are constantly chasing Mr. T. And by the way, he put out a truth yesterday I didn't get to in our last broadcast, that they had formally made the decision not to charge Mike Pence with anything with the documents that he had. And of course, there's still these outstanding boxes, 1,850 of them with Biden. So it's obvious that this is a very selective attack, an attack on DJE and 75 million, now probably closer to 100 million Americans. So if that's not rogue elements, I don't know what is. So the update on the hi Nick, how you doing? Hawk says 3 by 5 is my. I don't know. I tell you, I had a hard time logging in. Right now, my chat screen is frozen. But a lot of kooky stuff going on today. I'm not saying they're trying or the darkness, you know, nothing like that. I just things are a little screwed with the internet for some reason today. So hopefully you all are getting a good signal. Juan said buffering a little. Hi, Donna. How are you doing? I hope it's not buffering too bad. So I'm positioning my device towards where I can get the best signal and if, hopefully won't have to stand on my head. Hi, Marla. How are you? I sound like Cher. Good God. I sound like R2D2. My goodness. Choppy. Kim says it's choppy. Hi, Sherry. Hi, Gary. So, all right, I sound like R2D2, Cher, choppy. Okay. I'll have to put that in my report to StreamYard after all this is done. Anyway, I sound good now, Sandy said. Good. That's good to hear. Well, I tell you, did you see the press conferences where Comer was discussing he's going to introduce articles of impeachment against contempt of Congress? Well, there will probably be articles of impeachment against somebody, but contempt of Congress over this business. And Jamie Raskin came out, or whatever his name is, and tried to play things off. That was very interesting back and forth. And I noticed that some of the news organizations were getting a little aggressive with him, calling him Raskin out on some of his statements about the form that they're asking for was already looked at, and the investigation was decided under the Trump administration that it was a closed case, and boom. Right away, they started questioning about what's going on in Delaware. And he played halfway dumb. Kirby, the other one there in the White House, whatever his first name is, he acted like he'd never heard any report about the Bidens $10 million. And this one report that Comer's looking at is specifically referring to a $5 million bribe. And talk about a high crime. A high crime. That's specifically mentioned as a high crime is bribes. So that was very interesting. And Raskin even went so far as to say that Bill Barr had looked at the document and decided he needed no further investigation. But at the same time, the day before, and I don't think Raskin was caught up in speed on it, Barr was in an interview where he said, one of the things he said was, if it wasn't a coup, it was a pretty good imitation. So those are ominous words coming from Bill Barr. And now I know we won't be seeing Bill Barr on any more news programs because he was successful in putting out signals that he was going to be critical of Trump. And he was. Well, that got them to put him on their shows. And while he was on the shows, he threw out some nuggets for us. I went over them in past broadcasts. Now I know they're not going to put him on the shows. When he's using that kind of terminology and those kinds of statements, no, they avoid Bill Barr like the plague. But if people like Jamie Raskin keeps trying to Bill Barr's name in there, Bill Barr's going to respond. So it's all going to get very interesting. 13 BLT, how you doing? That's right, Debbie, the truth is coming out. Hi, Rick, how are you? Ingrid. Okay, I hope the sound's holding up good. So, anyway, what is the Delaware thing? I believe that is being handled by Durham or Durham Jr. or both. And it may still be falling under the Inspector General purview. which opened up a special investigation under Sessions. So, and we know that the Inspector General can investigate and form grand juries, file charges in any state in the union. So it's all getting very interesting. And when all this stuff is going on, we had talk of the Ukrainian offensive and how there was one side saying the offensive had started, the Russians saying, well, they did try something, but we repelled it very handily. And then the Ukrainians saying, well, we hadn't really started it yet, but we need more money. And then Joe falling down, Joe coming under all the scrutiny, Christopher Wray being put in the spotlight. What happens? Boom, they blow up the dam and cause major flooding. I know many of you have seen footage of houses going downstream, getting washed away. And we've got that nuclear power plant that people are very concerned about. Well, I've got some reports on that, and I've seen footage where somebody is lobbing mortars at that nuclear plant, and I know in Russia. So we'll go over that in a little bit more detail. How you doing, Adam? So let me see what I got in the way of reports. As far as the nuclear power plant is coming along, our friends in the East, our reporters in the East, have got a statement from somebody who works at the power plant, familiar with how it works. It's a little bit long, but they're talking about the cooling pools, how to keep it from over. And this is a quote from the person. The cooling pond is separated from the Kakova Reservoir by a dam and has a couple of gates for receiving or draining water, depending on the level difference. The pond is large. I don't remember a single case in the summer where the power of the blocks due to high water temperatures pond. So if it gets too warm in the pond, they let cool water in. They've got a management system for that pond. And he goes on to say, the pond is divided by partition into two parts. So the water can be taken from one place, and the water that has passed through the turbine condensers can be drained into another. Water walks around the ring and cools. So they put the word walks in quotes. That's how they describe the water. In any case, the power plant will operate with only the 5th and 6th blocks for the time being, and this pond will definitely be enough for them. If there is a problem with water, one or more plastic pipes will reach the place where there will still be water in the reservoir, and this will be enough to solve it. In this case, you just need to compensate for evaporation and leakage in the reservoir. So they're pretty confident that the capacity, they're going to do limited operations on the so-called blocks that need to be cooled. So the real danger is the repeated attacks that have been going on since last year. And Russia had documented, if you all remember, I did a broadcast where there were people evacuating Kherson. There were bulletins being put out about the availability of iodine. This was last year. Iodine is used for radiation sickness. So the people knew what was going on. They knew there was a danger, and Russia had told the UN that there was a planned dirty bomb attack near a nuclear site or power plant. So that plant has been under different forms of threats and attacks for the better part of 6 months. And that's the case now. They are shelling. I've seen videos of the shells splashing in the cooling ponds. So, choppy sound, Ray. Yes, please hit the thumbs up. Yeah, when you Gary's bringing up the Nord Stream pipeline. So that's what we're in the another war crime, because I had printed it out. What is considered a criminal act when you have a disproportionate damage or exclusive damage being done to the civilian population, to their safety or their actual physical well-being, or their ability to get food, anything like that. That is disproportionate or solely intended to cause disruption to civilian life is a war crime. So this and the Nord Stream pipeline are two egregious criminal acts. And I saw the footage of the actual blast at the dam. And it looked to me to be planted charges. And I could be wrong, but it looked to be a minimum of 3 explosions, possibly more, that ran the length of the dam and were nearly simultaneous. If I get a copy of that video, I'll play it. I think it's about 40 seconds long, but the explosions themselves are nearly simultaneous. And that's awful hard to do with missiles. Have 4 of them hit right in the same row, boom, 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 like that. You know, that ain't happening. That looks to me like more like those charges were planted. But I know it's being reported in the American media, but about, I don't know, 12 hours earlier, it was reported by our from the East that the Washington Post had done an article back on 12/29/2022, where the Ukrainians had discussed blowing up the dam and even had done some test strikes. Let me read the quote from the article. Major General of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, Kovalchuk, thought about flooding the river. The Ukrainians, he said, even carried out a test strike with HIMARS on one of the locks of the Novokakshaya Dam, making 3 holes in the metal to see if the waters of the Dnieper could rise enough to block Russian crossings without flooding nearby areas and villages. The test was successful. So that's a Washington Post article from December 29th of 2022. So they had considered it. They had done a test run on it. And also, if you remember, if you saw one of my broadcasts where they were making claims the Russians were retreating. And this was the beginning of this year. It was January or early February. Taken, and people were going, "Oh, they're giving up. Oh, you know, they're backing out of any kind of Kherson offensive or Bakhmut offensive." Well, and it was of thousands of Russian troops potentially could have been stranded on the other side of the river. And nobody really had a storyline favorable to say why the Russian forces were pulling back to the other side of the river. They didn't have any official explanation for it. This was 2 months ago. 2 months ago. And now they know why, because they got some intelligence that that dam was a possibility to be blown up, and the troops would have been cut off. So so that type of intelligence keep coming out. Stories are not told. They're not told till the story's over, or the chapter is over. So anyway, it's very interesting. And there's another report that came out that echoes this situation, is that the C.I.A. knew in advance. They had advance warning of a Ukrainian plan to bomb Nord Stream pipeline. The Biden administration knew about the Nord Stream attack 3 months ahead of time. Now, this is a Discord leak. Now, I'm looking at that with a kind of a side eye, because we're the ones who had naval vessels right over the area where the destruction happened. We're the ones, Victoria Nuland bragging it was a hunk of metal at the bottom of the sea, as it should be, according to her. So I don't know if they're putting this junk out to distract people, but it is definitely in my mind, a monumental act of desperation to, first of all, stop the talk about an offensive that they could not perform. They've been stalling, making excuses, and never putting out an offensive of any consequence. And we've discussed in the past that the fall of Bakhmut would be the gateway for the Russians to push the advance farther, and there would be very little Ukrainians could do except go to certain doom, really. So let me see. I want to pull that report on. There was an attempt at an offensive, and the results of that attempt. How many tanks were lost? How many men were lost? So they did try an offensive on June 4th, and I have a report of that. Let me find it. That's a little bit detailed. Oh my goodness. I have to try to find that. But they did, before they did this deed, I'll say, they had tried an attack and were repulsed. So I don't see it in here, but they lost probably a dozen tanks. I don't know how many. It was late in the evening on June 4th, and the only reason they had some success is it got dark and they had some infantry get through, but they lost about 250 men and destroyed I think a dozen tanks and about a half dozen APCs and a lot of military equipment. So if I pull it up, I'll be able to read it to you in more detail. How you doing, 223 from Waynesville, Missouri? Nice to meet you. Yes, they are running a puppet show. Puppet, who's their puppet masters? That's what we want to find out. Rooting for Putin. So anyway, at least we know that as far as cooling the reactor, because I mean, what's done is done with the dam, and they're evacuating people. They have to evacuate the whole city of Kherson, or they already have. They said yesterday, within 24 to 48 hours, the whole city would have to be evacuated. Going to be underwater. So and the Dnieper River dropped 2.5 feet. So which is very precipitous, a precipitous drop. I wonder if, where I put that. But anyway, so Trump gave a speech, excuse me, a speech about D-Day today on Newsmax. I didn't get to see it. Now be careful about being confused between News Nation and Newsmax. There's a big difference. Just like I was talking about Sky News, there's a big difference between that and Sky News Australia. Here we've got all this stuff going on. The stalled spring offensive, this showdown over the Biden bribes and other crimes. News Nation comes out, and along with the usual suspects, The Sun, Sky News, they come out with a military whistleblower is talking about alien life forms, spaceships being collected by the military. There are numerous ones. Then half a day goes by, or the next day, the same whistleblower. New whistleblower discloses they have alien life forms, bodies of non-humanoid creatures that were taken off of vessels not of this earth, and jibber jabber like that. Let me tell you, folks, it happens every time when it's getting down to crunch time. Look there, not here. Okay, and this so-called whistleblower is on News Nation being interviewed. You see his face. They obviously know who he is. Here we got one person who's in mortal danger for telling on the Bidens. Okay, he's been publicly said his safety can't be guaranteed. Okay, so that means we got a guy, a military whistleblower that's putting out information that by all rights would be super classified. He hadn't got a worry in the world. So I'm thinking the guy who's sweating whether he's going to wake up in the morning is the one that's telling the truth. And the one that's going out and doing interviews is full of bull. So keep that in mind, folks. I mean, I don't know what some people in chats or some people who come to view the video might strongly believe in extraterrestrials and UFO kidnappings and all that. I'm not trying to get into that. I'm not trying to get into that, but I am saying they bring up that sensational stuff every time. They're getting put in a corner. So, those issues aside, and I will be mentioning them here and there as we go along. There's other stuff going on. I don't know the name of this judge, and like I said, it's not good to mention judges, but this is in Florida. Breaking. Federal judge blocks Florida banning child sex changes. Declares, quote, gender identity is real. And here's this character sitting there with a striped bow tie on. Looks like something Red Skelton would wear when he was doing his comedy acts. And the judge says the elephant in the room should be noted at the outset. Gender identity is real. The record makes this clear. Well, I'm going to try to temper my comment on that. But as far as I'm concerned, whether it's because he's stupid or evil, I don't know. But he's contributing, as far as I'm concerned, my opinion, to child abuse. And he has no business sitting on a bench with that kind of thinking and that kind of a ruling. And there's going to be hell to pay. Mr. T gets in there. These people are on record that there's something wrong with the brain, whether it's so-called, quote, innocent ignorance or malicious evil, one or somewhere in between. It's stuff that this society cannot and will not tolerate. So hopefully I put that in a delicate enough manner. There's no compromise. There's no compromise to whether or not anyone, any doctor, parent, anyone should alter a minor's physiology to any degree, psychologically or physically. So hopefully I'll be on here later in the week and not knocked off, but I got to call it like I see it. So and I'm sure everybody is being careful in the chats, but we can say what we mean without being too rough. And I was watching a creator that was on a different site, and they were saying, I'm not like one of these people that try to stay on YouTube and pussyfoot around with their language, and I'm not doing that now. And then they get into all this talk that could very easily be construed as violent. And yeah, it's an emotional thing. But we as adults should be able to communicate our disdain for this practice and without leaving a door open to be accused of anything. So it's not that I man was beamed up. No, I'm still here. I'm glad most of you are still here. I didn't hit the wrong button, Roy. I got plucked off. I said, well, like I said at the beginning of the broadcast, I had a hard time getting in, and then I'm sitting here talking away, and all of a sudden the screen goes blank, and it says, "We're experiencing a problem. If this continues, please let us know." So I'm like, well, gee, you should already know. But anyway, let me see where I left off. I wasn't beamed up. Beat up. If this stuff happens, it happened to me a couple of times last month, and sometimes it happens. So if you stick with me, I'll come back unless like internet service is interrupted. But it was very difficult for me. I tried 4 times to go live, starting at 9:20. It took me over 10 minutes to go live, which is really aggravating. Thank you, Gary. Gary said, I pray God protects this channel. Thank you, Gary. Stand on one foot and hold my left arm out. That's right. Now Susan said I got 5 out of 5. Donna said, "Hey, Melvita, what? Let's see what Melvita look out for me. She brings cups of coffee with her. Hello." Redacted got interfered with today. I don't doubt it. I was watching other creators, but that was on Rumble. Did you all see that? What that flag looks like? The Rockefeller Center put up 193 United Nations member flags with the one world government flag. And there's green, blue, and it looks kind of like a rainbow. And we've discussed how the Rockefeller Center was involved, starting with a vengeance in the 1970s of altering what was considered to be healthy and good food. And I believe my parents, myself, at the tail end, my grandparents suffered with the introduction of Crisco oil, corn oil, telling people eggs were bad, butter was bad, introducing these man-made chemicals. I can't believe they call this garbage butter, or whatever the name of that stuff is, and ingesting things the human body had never had to try to digest before. Now it's come out that butter is the most easily processed and digestible fat, even easier on the body than cocoa butter or olive oil, which are healthy. So anyway, they started messing with us, and that was tied to studies by the Rockefeller Medical Center, the food pyramid, getting us all on carbs and cheap garbage. So now they're putting up the one world order flag. Oh my gosh, Bambi, that's awful. Well, I tell you, I'm not going to read everything there, but they've showed a video of Alphabet Parade advertised as a quote family event, and you guys can see in the quote there. As far as I'm concerned, people should be going to jail. They need to be going to jail. And like I said, if Venezuela can swoop in a couple of weeks, get 63,000 of them, it's piece of cake for us to do probably, I don't know, 250,000, 500,000. So, yeah, what they tell us not to eat, we should eat. Yeah. Our parents' generation was probably got it the worst. Well, really, our generation too. We turn the ship around towards the, our mature years. We can turn the ship around, but the explosion of high blood pressure, diabetes in our society is unprecedented. And you could put it all to the pharmaceutical companies and the misinformation about our food. So, with that in mind, DJT has announced that he is going to open up an investigation into the rise of chronic childhood illnesses. Chronic childhood illnesses. And I remember, a lot of you remember going to school with a lunchbox. Mom used to make your lunch. And now they've had total control over generations with whoever could get the food the cheapest, high carb, cheap garbage food. And they even made it illegal to have your mom pack your lunch. So yeah, I'm sure the children of the closest generation are really suffering. There are 12-year-old kids that need liver transplants because they have such severe fatty liver, most of it attributed to drinking soda with high fructose corn syrup. And I believe that's exactly what Mr. T is going to, one of the things he's going to be zeroing in on very heavily. That stuff should have a warning label on everything that's got high fructose corn syrup in as an ingredient. Well, that is all Agenda 47, folks. And if you watch Forbes on YouTube, you can go through all of Agenda 47. Well, there's big news about DC. I mean, about Disney. Have you all heard that Disney is shaking in their boots? I mean, this is the biggest potential disaster. And I'm not talking about The Little Mermaid or Indiana Jones doing bad. I'm talking about a contract deal they got into that's coming home to roost. Apparently, they had a deal with Comcast to, at a certain time, they would be required to pay the market rate, the market value of a certain amount of a company called Hulu, Hulu. As a matter of fact, I know one of the guys that developed that, him and two other guys. I was doing business with him about 15 years ago. And well, I guess he's doing real well now. But The company came back appraised, and I don't know if it was Forbes or which company, that Hulu's worth between 20 billion and 70 billion. The what the obligation of Disney, where it falls, somewhere between 20 billion and 70 billion, and where they've gotten in their litigation or mediation that I'm sure is binding is not a question of whether or not Disney has to pay. That is already settled. The question is how much, and it's somewhere between 20 billion and 70 billion. And very soon, how much they have to pay and when they have to pay it is coming up very, very soon. Well, the New York Times, I believe it was, reported that Disney has a liquid cash net worth of, guess how much? Liquid cash. They got to come up with somewhere between 20 billion and 70 billion to Comcast under contractual agreement. I'll just say billions. They have to come up with billions. And how much do you think liquid cash on hand Disney Corporation has? Oh, Diane says, my lunchbox was Lassie. Gary said, Walt Disney, what is it? His head's frozen. He thinks he's coming back. Hi, Prototype. Hi, Cheryl. Raymond Butters. Well, they're young, Raymond, and, hopefully we can turn that ship around with the young people, if we can get a handle on what kind of food we're pumping into them. The Peanuts gang. Yeah, Marla. I tell you, if you still had those lunchboxes in good shape, I had a Lone Ranger lunchbox. I had Lone Ranger, and what was the other one I had? Jiminy Crickets. I think my brother had Flash Gordon. So I don't see any guesses on what Disney Corporation's liquid cash on hand is rated at. But I can tell you this. I'll tell you what it is, and then I'll give the chat another minute or two to guess. And but I will say this: what they're looking at is they got to sell. Just like what made me think of this is because I was reading an article I was going to tell you all about where Donald Trump predicted the future. A number of articles were written today that Donald Trump predicted the future by the PGA lining up with what is it, his golf tournament, LVIV. They linked up. They're merging. And but he also said, month, if you all remember, he told Ron DeSantis, you better watch out because Disney may even sell some of its theme parks. Watch, he said in capital letters, watch. And now here comes this news with Comcast. They're calling in the ticket. Okay, they're calling in the winning ticket. Time to pay. So let me see. Susan said, I'll say $1 billion. You would think a company like Disney would have $1 billion. Hi, Mike. How are you doing? Hi, Phil. So Susan says $1 billion. Well, if they don't declare bankruptcy, they're going to have to sell quite a bit. And one of their prize companies is called Lucasfilms. They paid George Lucas, I believe the purchase price was $4 billion. Plus, they also had to pay him royalties for ongoing use of the characters in Star Wars. And people say that may be the reason they've gone to such lengths to destroy Star Wars, kill off the lead characters, and create new characters, which destroyed the franchise. Very disappointing. Kathleen Kennedy was in charge of that, and she was in tight with Harvey Weinstein. But anyway, it's Lucasfilms that they have that theme park, the Galactic Motel or whatever it is, $5,000 to go there. Some building they made look like a spaceship or something like that. And, you know, you're looking at these new Star Wars characters with, you know, they basically look like $200 million. All the other cash they have on hand is leveraged cash that they owe on buildings, you know, whatever. And when you take the debts and the assets and do the math, they're worth a lousy $200 million. A company like Disney, that's all the liquid cash they have on hand. They have more cash, but it is not considered liquid because it's encumbered. So they say that this deal coming to fruition is the biggest challenge to the company's viability in its history. So they've already said they're going to sell Shanghai Disney. And boy, you know, if the Chinese businessmen know that Disney's got to sell, they ain't going to get squat for it over there. I mean, they're going to be like wolves, and they're going to pick it up for a song. And word of this kind of deal gets out. Oh, no sound? Oh, my goodness. Yeah, that'd be nice, Gary, if they took the cash away and gave it to the kids. And if the families played along with it, forget the families, just put it towards getting the kids some care. Is my sound back? Okay, 5 by 5 now, good. Oh, thank you, Nikki. Yeah, if y'all like to support the channel, and Gary, you've done more than enough for Buddy. Just all you gotta do is put a boom in there for me. I'll be happy. But this is a viewer-supported, creator-supported channel only. I've got a link in the description for Buy Me a Coffee if anybody wants to help out. And nothing else, you got a good stock tip. Don't buy any Disney because they're going to be in big trouble. And let's see. Okay, good. It's all 5x5. So anyway, I just heard that report about an hour before I went live about what is coming down the pike for Disney. And we'll see how they get out of it. The good news is if they sell Lucasfilms, I will laugh, because I tell you what they did. They verbally promised. Kathleen Kennedy was a personal friend of George Lucas. And one of the motivating factors for him to sell, I mean, when somebody weighs $4 billion under your nose, George Lucas is like, well, you know, I want you guys to respect the core of the story and, you know, talk sentimental in there. Oh yeah. But none of it was in writing to an enforceable degree. Just platitudes and malleable garbage. And she got that control over the last 3 Star Wars movies and turned it into woke garbage. Not as bad as it could have been, but bad. And I would just love it if Lucas could come in there and pick it up for half of what he sold it for and give the fans some really good product. Oh, my chats are frozen. But anyway, I do want to mention D-Day, folks, and I'm going to go over now. And Nikki, I know it's late and you're tired. We got a wonderful crowd in here tonight. But if you need to get some rest, honey, we'll understand. I do want to talk a little bit about D-Day, and I have to bring up, if you have any friends that are still Obama fans, I want you to remind them of the last time Obama was in office, that they had a government shutdown. He went out of his way to close down open air parks, which have never been done before, with all the government shutdowns, temporary shutdowns, all this stuff. Nobody missed a paycheck. Everybody got paid at the end of the day. But this time around, he would have the Capitol Police go like to the new World War II memorial that Bob Dole put together a coalition of people to put up a memorial for World War II veterans. Whatever anybody thinks of Bob Dole, he did get that done. And they actually had veterans in wheelchairs that wanted to see that new memorial, and that was their last chance to come from around the country. He took the Capitol Police and made those people leave open air monuments. He had businesses that were privately owned but on government land, made them close down, okay, almost destroyed restaurants and businesses. The biggest days of the year for waitresses and employees to make money, they weren't allowed to. things that did not need the government to function. He had people go and run veterans off of memorials and close down private businesses serving federal parks, among other things, to put pressure on the Republicans to borrow more money and reopen the government. Now, that single act in itself was a disgrace. It was never reported in the news. It should have been the shame of the nation when that happened. Men died by the thousands on D-Day. Young 18, 19, 20-year-olds this day washed up on the beaches. They didn't get 2 feet past the landing craft. Once the door dropped, some of them dropped right inside the landing craft, got shot. What a horror. What a horror for those young people to go through. And in solidarity, the French government closed the beachhead of Normandy in solidarity with Obama. And there were veterans there in their 80s that were talking about storming the beaches again, who were denied the right to go down and honor their comrades. So, and they wouldn't let them on the beaches. And for a lot of their last time. So anybody that's got respect for Obama, tell them that little story. It's good, because that's where he lost any respect he may have had with me. And I know when Donald Trump told both Michelle and Barack, I'll never forgive you for what you did to our armed forces. I'm sure that's one of the things that he was bringing up. And they did that. Barack and Michelle Obama did that to our veterans, and nobody ever talks about it. Nobody on the mainstream media. We talk about it, we honor, respect, and we'll never forget what Obama did. So nobody acts that way. That's the commander in chief. But a rogue element will. And Obama is a rogue element. Hold on, I got a message. Holy cow, Gary, help me out again. And that's what that room was for. I appreciate it so much, Gary. And yeah, please hit the like button. Thank you for helping out with Buy Me a Coffee, Gary. I appreciate it. It's I tell you what, how I'm going to go over just a little bit, because I want that media manipulation by omitting the disgusting act of keeping our veterans from memorials over a political budget deal. Very few of our normal friends even know that happened. And excuse me, wow. take a sip of coffee. Two things reminded me of this incident. One was when Trump predicted the merger of PGA with his golfing group. A woman on the circuit or whatever, and she called the PGA a disgrace. Let me see if I got her babbling in here. She brought up the Saudis, Trump, and Khashoggi. You all remember the name Khashoggi? Let me see if I've got that in here. Here we go. She said the PGA wimped out. Let's just say what it is. And they've gone into business with the Saudis, the people who killed Jamal Khashoggi, the people responsible for 9/11. I am shocked. People have this, actually was trying to get Trump to go to war over this Khashoggi person. And of course, Trump, when D-Day comes around, Veterans Day, Memorial Day, he is acting presidential. He's honoring our military. He's providing them everything they need. The exact opposite of what Obama did. That's never brought up. Khashoggi, who wasn't even a lawful, he didn't even have his residency papers to be a resident in this country. He was coming over on some kind of tourist visa or business visitation visa or something like that. He wrote like 2 editorials for the Washington Post, and they called him a Washington Post reporter, that Trump would let a Washington Post reporter be killed by the Saudis. We needed to take action against the Saudis. And the story on Khashoggi is he's got kids in the U.S. He married a woman in the U.S., but he's not a citizen. He has no citizenship. He doesn't even have the right to reside in this country, only on temporary visas. And he only wrote 2 editorials that were critical to a treasonous degree in the mind of the Saudi government in the Washington Post. He was killed in a embassy overseas, not anywhere on U.S. soil, and not in the U.S. embassy. In other words, we didn't have a dog in that fight, and people were wanting us to go to war. Now I'm kind of talking in circles, but around about the same time, Donald Trump put out Operation Kayla Mueller. Interesting enough, her name is spelled exactly like Robert Mueller, M-U-E-L-L-E-R. But Kayla Mueller. Now, how I lost my friend. We were riding together, and he said something about Khashoggi and how Trump was, and he used a vulgarity I won't use. And I've been friends with this guy for about 10 years. And I said, well, he did Operation Kayla was to get the Al-Qaeda leader. Okay, well, let me pull this up. This is where Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, when al-Baghdadi was chased by that dog Sarge down a tunnel, and Trump said he died like a dog, and the world is a better place. That was called Operation Kayla. Not a lot of people in normal world know that. Kayla was one of 4 Americans that Abu, what's his face, Baghdadi, killed and videotaped. But before he did that, he kept her for a long period of time and abused her, if you know what I mean. Him and his men. Al-Baghdadi is in one of the pictures I showed where John McCain was over there meddling in foreign affairs and meeting with these terrorists after he had kidnapped Kayla Mueller. So I said, well, he got revenge for Kayla. And he said, what are you talking about? So I went through the story just like with what I'm talking about here. I said, al-Baghdadi he just announced he had him, went and got him. They've been after him for a couple of years. And he said, Khashoggi was a Washington Post reporter. I corrected him on that. And I said he didn't even have residency paper. This guy got so upset. And I didn't say it to him, but I thought to myself, when these liberals know more about some guy named Khashoggi or think they know more and don't even know about Kayla, the operation's name, what happened to her, how they treated her, and how they beheaded her and filmed it and sent the video to their parents. That's media manipulation. And I think of that. I think of how they manipulated the media and my friends who are no longer my friends to think that Obama was such a wonderful person after what he did, and that Trump is such a bad person, not thinking a thing or giving him any credit for what he did. Putting this Washington Post editorialist twice, 2 articles. I could do that in a day. I could give him 2 articles. That we would go to war over somebody like that and denigrate the president of the United States. The media is complicit. There's people pulling their strings. The same with this judge that overturned that ruling barring mutilating young people. I don't know if it's, as I said earlier in the broadcast, whether he's ignorant or evil. But I know it's folks, it sounds a little convoluted, but if you can see the connection, major events in the war on terror, major events in our foreign policy that have been perverted by the media, and there are subversive elements that are in control of that. When you get a population, half the population, to hate their leader, to walk away from their friends and family, there's an inordinate amount of influence by subversive elements. So I was going to get into this part a little bit more. I wanted to talk about, and I will in another broadcast, I wanted to talk about how we don't need to be afraid of an apocalypse. I want to discuss the mark of the beast in biblical terms, not clickbait, fantasy, but real discussions about what we're looking at as far as human civilization and the word. So I'll do that in a future broadcast. I will touch it on a little bit. And I had a discussion some time ago with Nikki, where I mentioned the 2 witnesses before the beast arrives. Okay? People are talking about the mark of the beast. Before the beast arrives, there will be two witnesses. Okay? I'll get into that in more detail, but the bottom line is that they will be killed when the beast arrives. Before the beast arrives, they will be on this earth for 3.5 years. Okay, telling the truth and teaching. One last warning to human beings, to mankind, for 3.5 years. Then the beast will arrive. So we'll get to that. But the point is, we're going to get one more warning, at least. And then it's going to come down to this. 2 Thessalonians. God sends them a powerful delusion so that all will be condemned who have not believed the truth, but have delighted in wickedness. All will be condemned for those who won't believe the truth. So for these people that are happy with sending children to that kind of fate, you better get with the truth. You better wake your own brain up, and the warning is going to come. I don't know when. But so anyway, we'll get into that some more, folks, in the future. Yeah, Obama's in Kenya. The dude. How you doing, the dude? I'm just looking at the comments. Tubala said, heard King Charles was the Antichrist. Well, the Antichrist will show himself after the two witnesses have walked to earth for 3.5 years. Okay? And they will be given powers. It says so in the Bible. I'll go ahead and talk about it now, since I'm not quite at an hour and a half. I'm at an hour, 18 minutes. They will be given powers to two witnesses to make fire come from the sky, smoke belch from the earth, and rivers turn to blood, among other powers. And they'll get the attention of the whole world. And they will tell the truth. They will bear witness. A lot of people have said that maybe it'll be John the Baptist, one of them. Maybe the other one will be Elijah. Maybe Moses. Moses turned the Nile River to blood. But they'll be given powers that people have never seen. Then after the 3.5 years, the beast will rise from the abyss. Okay, from the bottomless pit or the abyss, either one. And he will war with the saints, is one phrase, and that he will also kill the two witnesses. And they'll lay in the streets for 3 days. Their bodies will be abused. They'll be mocked for 3 days. Then comes the reign of the Antichrist, the beast, and the mark of the beast. So we'll go over that. Uh, 3.5 years since patient zero. Oh, June 25th, they could descend that day. Well, that's prior to what's prior to the two witnesses. I don't know. I just know the two witnesses will be here for 3.5 years. I don't think there's any 3.5 year period before them. So, like I said before, no one knows the time and the hour, and even the angels are curious and wondering. The only one knows is the Father. Okay, Gary, I see what you're saying. I see what you're saying. Yeah. So, but one point I was trying to get at, I'm like everybody else. I'm like the angels only. I'm not like an angel, but I'm like the angels in that I'm like wondering too, when is the final day? The day is going to come. And I've said in the past, World War II and the aftermath, 100 million people lost their lives just in World War II. But a lot of people around half the globe saw the horrors and said, this has got to be the end times. Hitler has got to be the Antichrist. Can you see how that is? And when they were tattooing Jewish people, they were thinking, well, there's the mark of the beast, and they're doing it to them now. We're next. We're going to have the mark of the beast. Little kids showing their forearms. And it wasn't just Jewish people. It was untermentioned, anybody who was not considered part of the Aryan race. So you can see how people in the 1930s and 40s were certain that Christ would come. Yet here we are. The miracle of Fatima. Over 100 years ago. And during World War I, they thought that was a harbinger of the end times. And the mark of the beast, people say, well, it will be on your hand or on your forehead. And a lot of people cued into the fact that the King James Version and the New King James Version, NKJV and KJV, said in the hand or in the forehead. So they said, oh, well, that must mean it's the VAX, right? Well, you think about it. Do you get the VAX in your forehead? No. Do you get the VAX in your hand? No. Then people said a chip. It means a chip. So we're constantly guessing and wondering. But then again, what's the mark of the beast? You won't be able to buy or sell. Isn't that something for words thousands of years ago to predict that there would be a world where you would not be able to buy or sell because you had a mark of a beast? How in the heck could somebody have known that we would be in this digital age where they can shut down your bank account, they can suck money out of your bank account, they can monitor you? How the power of that prophecy is really, chilling when you think about it. So, but then I was thinking, what am I holding in my hand? My phone. It's in my hand, right? It doesn't say in the back of my hand. In your hand. In my forehead. Well, what is that? Me letting this stuff from this thing in my hand get in my brain? What's the interpretation of that? I find thinking about it very fascinating, but in a biblical perspective, not a fantastic perspective. And it's not fantastic to think that something that's in my hand that affects my forehead might not be that if you don't have one of these phones, because I heard there are police officers in certain areas, mostly in the, well, I heard that this about a different country. They can detect when there's a electronic device in a vehicle, right? That's how some of them know whether when somebody's texting, they pull them over and say, "You were texting. I know you were." Like the guy in Canada, he pulled up to the border and he said, "Here, I'll show you where I got my VAX." The guy said, "No, I already checked your phone out while you were driving up." They were able to access his phone and his information. Well, the new twist to that is if you drive by and you don't have an electronic signal, you don't have a phone, you don't have a vehicle that has OnStar and get tied to the web, they'll pull you over. What are you up to? How come you don't have an electronic thing that we can track? Isn't that chilling? You can't take your 1989 or 99 Toyota and leave your phone at home without being a suspect of doing something wrong. Let me see. Well, the thing is, let's see. Several antichrists. I don't know about that, Lori. I don't know. Let's see. Mark of the beast happens only when people accept it. Nobody's accepting it. Well, Gary, I talked about how people go to drive-throughs and just hang their arm out and let somebody stick them, take their kids. A lot of them are taking their kids for those operations. That's true. I don't feel it's tribulation either, Gary. I don't feel it is. That's right, Kim, how they lined up for that. This is the last iPhone, Raymond says. Oh, well, you might know something more than we do. Well, I want to read, I think this is from Thessalonians. Let me see. When the end time comes, I agree that we're not in tribulation because we've not seen the two witnesses. And the two witnesses are before the beast, before the beast rising. And the beast will have power too. He will have power over people's minds, and he can make miracles happen. Let me see. I'm trying to find that one passage. So, I was reading where somebody said, "Well, can you take the mark of the beast by accident?" Because Gary mentioned, well, people have to accept the mark of the beast. Well, can you take it by accident? What would God think if you took it by accident? And I'm going to say it like this. The very first story in Genesis, right, about human beings, Adam and Eve. God didn't chase after them. He wasn't a helicopter parent. He let them do their own thing. And he didn't intervene when the serpent came, and when Adam and Eve were conversing and they made a decision to take a bite, right? He didn't step in. And when Cain slew Abel, he didn't swoop in and stop Cain and say, "Hey, you're he didn't chase after Cain to do the right thing. He didn't come up to Abel and say, "Hey, you better watch out for your brother." So that's going to be the same way with the mark of the beast. And let me read this. I'll come in and out so I don't drop off. Let me see. Okay. He's telling us every day with the world that he's given us, and the book that he's given us, and with the Savior that he's given us. But here's this passage. For what can be known about God is plain to them, because God has shown it to them. For his invisible attributes, namely his eternal power, our divine nature, have been clearly perceived. Namely, it's all laid out there for them to see. And after the two witnesses, it most surely will be laid out for all of them to see. The passages go on to say, ever since the creation of the world, have been clearly perceived in the things that he has made. So they are without excuse, for they knew God. They did not honor him as God or give thanks to him, but they became futile in their thinking, and their foolish hearts were darkened. Their foolish hearts were darkened, and they had futile thoughts. Claiming to be wise, they became fools and exchanged the glory of the immortal God for images resembling mortal man and birds and animals and creeping things, namely idolatry. Therefore, God gave them up in the lusts of their hearts to impurity, to the dishonoring of their bodies among themselves, because they exchanged the truth about God for a lie, and worshiped and served the creature rather than the Creator, who is blessed forever. Amen. For this reason, God gave them up to dishonorable passions. Dishonorable passions. So the bottom line is, if they say, I was tricked into taking it, or, whatever, just like with Adam and Eve and the apple, whose fault was it you got tricked? It was your fault. So if you end up with the mark, it's because you allowed yourself to be given over to your own strong delusions. So, yeah, I got a quote from I was reading there about those young men that died. Bambi was talking about they weren't called the greatest generation for nothing. And Devin Nunes put out, I believe it was Nunes, put out a quote from Reagan's speech. No, it was Citizens Free Press put out a quote from Reagan's speech at D-Day. He said, "The men of Normandy." This was in 1984. "The men of Normandy had faith that what they were doing was right, faith that they had fought for all of humanity, faith that a just God would grant them mercy on this beachhead or on the next." I tell you, if you ever listen to Reagan's speech, especially his last one at Normandy, it's hard to not break down. I tell you, he was a great communicator. He really was. Oh, Hilarious too says there are at least two more eons. One eon is 1,000 years, so we got 2,000. You think Hilarious too? I appreciate all you listening to me, and I'm reading your comments. So anyway, I got to listen to what Mr. T said for the D-Day anniversary, and I think I think I was thinking, well, maybe I shouldn't be pointing fingers at Obama and bringing up that stuff what he did, but I think we need to drill it into people's minds, because the deeds have been done, the facts are the facts. The Because it was not put out there by the mainstream media, and people are not aware of who Kayla Mueller was and what happened to her and three other Americans by the one that Trump got, and how at the same time they ramped up this worship of one person. I'm sorry he died. I'm sorry he got taken in the embassy and what happened to him. But that was between him and the Saudi government. He was a Saudi citizen who absconded from his country and was writing stuff in the news, prominent paper. And what happened to him happened outside this country. We can't save every fallen Robin, and we can't right every wrong, especially in some other country. But the fact that my friend and thousands of people have friends just like him knew more false information about Khashoggi than they knew the truth about Kayla. We got the media to blame for that, and the puppet masters behind the media, the rogue elements that are in our government, in our judicial system, in our media, our show business, and everything else. We got to identify them and root them out in a lawful manner, of course. Oh yeah, we'll be part of his army. We're part of his army here in the here and now. In the here and now. Hi, Linda Marie. How are you? So anyway, that's right, Raymond. Use a 4 for A in that word, Raymond. Help me out with that. So yeah, we're all wondering about when the final time will come, and everybody's got their own thoughts on it. And as far as my own life and my own relationship with God, I have to keep in mind that a lot of people throughout history think they're right. You know, I don't want to think I'm right. I want to read as much as I can and cogitate as much as I can on the word and hope like heck I'm right and strive to live in the right. And this, I think the biggest responsibility in this day and age is to spread the word. And when you see judges making decisions like this, uh, teachers doing what they're doing, parents doing what they're doing, to somehow get the word to them to change. But then I think of what the passages I just read. It's on display for them. It's been on display since the beginning of time. And they'll be condemned if they don't accept the truth, recognize the truth. So, I mean, nobody wants millions and millions and millions of people to be condemned. So we have to be little witnesses in our own right, where we try to get the word out, not in a way to alienate people. I didn't want to lose my friend that day. I was silent about many of the things I discussed. I just said, well, he wasn't really even a resident. I said, but Kayla and 3 other people were American citizens this guy killed. And that's about all. And I think I spoke to him on the phone one time after that, but he was so angry he never spoke to me again because I would not bash Trump. I mean, it's getting to the point where uh, the delusion. I'm not deluded. I mean, famous last words of a schizophrenic, I know, but I'm not. I mean, I know the good deeds that Trump has done. I know he's a flawed human being like we all are flawed. The last perfect person got crucified, my father said once. But to look at this dichotomy of behaviors between presidents, this total opposite, and you see these people that still have hate in their hearts for a real estate guy from New York. It's unnerving. So you try to reach out to people with kindness and logic and reason, and not get emotional and not um, seem hostile towards them. And I think it's the biggest responsibility we have right now in this day and age is for the people who can be reached to reach out to them, not to placate their behaviors, because the Bible's very clear about what is an abomination and what is giving their physical bodies up to unholy things. Very clear. And so, hey, like the old saying, if you can even change one mind, but if you can't, at least you've got to try. So that's why I try to stay on UTISL, because I would be just talking to myself and very few of my good friends on other sites. That's why I struggle to stay on YouTube, because there's a chance somebody will hit that button and listen to me, and what I say could possibly at the last minute steer their life away from a disaster. It might be a 15-year-old kid that hears what I'm saying and goes to a passage I read and read it for themselves, and maybe that'll do it. I don't know. I'm just a grain of sand on the beach. That's right. That's right. We have to uh, acknowledge we're all rebellious. That's right. And we have to do penance, and we have to reflect, and we have to help others. And the danger is that without repentance and without, as I said, what Christ said when he saved the woman from being stoned, he said, "Go and sin no more." So we have to strive. We have to do uh, our utmost to be pleasing to God, and we have to repent, which means to look at things in a different light, in a way that's pleasing to God, how we perceive things. You change the way you look at things, things change how they look. That's what repent means. Not to beat ourselves up. You're not going to do God any good if you beat yourself up, right? We got to get strong and stand tall, and strive to reach out to others in a Christian-like manner, not with condemnation or hate or anger, but with uh, humility and sincerity and truth. So anyway, folks, we had a good talk tonight. And I appreciate y'all spending your precious time with me. Uh, I don't believe I'll be able to broadcast tomorrow. So unless something big happens, I will. If something big happens, I will. But if I don't broadcast tomorrow, I'll be up to Thursday night. So Cliff Curry said 100 billion. You might be back in the. You might be behind in the. You can be watching the video, but from 20 minutes or a half hour earlier, but watching the chats of now, Cliff. I think you came in a little late. But anyway, folks, I see a lot of people dropping off. But I appreciate y'all being with me tonight, and I'll be shooting for Thursday. But if some big news comes up, something we got to talk about, I'll come up tomorrow. And thank you, Gary, for helping out again tonight. Well, we got to think about our veterans, that so many of them that lost their lives on this day, and honor them. And I wouldn't let a liberal forget what happened with Obama and them. Not saying it as a nanny boo boo, but just saying, you know, your choice of friends or choice of president needs to be re-examined. I'll put it that way. Anyway, folks, y'all have a great night, and I'll be up Thursday night, unless something happens tomorrow. So you guys have a good evening, and I'll see you soon. This is Mountain Man, over and out.